Can you check now? ఇప్పుడు చెక్ చేస్తావు? రిఫ్రెష్ చెయ్యి. నో గో లైవ్ ఆన్ అయిన ఎందుకు? మీ ఫ్రెండ్స్తో ఎవరిని అడుగుతావా? Exactly. Is it visible? Okay, then I'll start from the beginning again. Yeah, thank you, Murli. Yeah. Friends, good morning to all of you. I think there was a little deviation. You were able to see only my face, or otherwise only a slide. But I guess now it should be visible. If you can just let me know. Yeah, it's visible and audible. Thank you very much. I think now with that feedback, I'm moving forward. So what I'll do, before we start with the research design topic, that is what the promised topic for today, I want you to have a refreshing understanding of what have we learned yesterday. For example, we had seen so far how many steps? 4 steps we had seen. So in step 1 is selection of the topic. Step 2 is analyze existing and relevant literature or knowledge. And then step 3 is formulating concepts and prepositions. Step 4 is statement of hypothesis. So these are the 4 steps that we had seen so far, and now I'm simultaneously demonstrating all the 4 steps, even though the slide states that step 2 demonstration, but I'm going to demonstrate all of them at a time. So pictorially I will do it, and I'm going to show you how I will do it for the topic that I have selected, so that it will be easy for you also to do your homework or your assignment. So as I told you, tomorrow is the deadline, so you can still take until Monday, no problem. So what are you supposed to do? Individually, each one of you is expected to take a topic, and then you know what is called a research design as of now. And then I'll again refresh quickly all of those, because I know research is a technical subject, you have to slowly go. But I guess so far we are struggling, or we are attempting to understand and then simplify it as far as possible in the current environment. So what I'll do now, we will straight get into uh, next slide, in which I would say my topic is conflicts and satisfaction among hospital employees. Earlier I said hospital managers, but now I'm changing it into hospital employees. I want to bring the other cadre of employees also into the fold of my title. So this time it will be called conflicts and satisfactions among hospital employees. So which would also include doctors, which also include nurses, and so on. Now what we will do, since this is my research idea, research topic, I am moving forward with the theoretical model of, if you remember, yesterday I had shown you the theory of conflicts and satisfaction. Do you remember that from the yesterday slide? I have shown you that from my review of literature or analyzing existing literature, I found one research article which deals with conflicts and satisfaction. So what I'm doing, from their research article, I have picked up this model. This is called theoretical model that they have proposed. Now in their theoretical model, they have identified and suggested that there are 3 types of conflicts employees suffer from or experience. They are called work conflict, family conflict, and inter-role conflict. I guess the picture is very clear. Work conflict, family conflict, and inter-role conflict. And then conflict, there are 3 types of conflicts. That's why we say in plurality conflicts. Similarly, the satisfactions, there are 3 types of satisfactions that they have identified in their research work, namely work satisfaction, family satisfaction, and life satisfaction. These are the 3 types of satisfactions that they have identified. So now what is the connection? Work conflict would have a negative relationship or inverse relationship with satisfactions. More simplified, the more conflicts, the lesser the satisfaction in life. That's how broadly it is understood. So this is the theoretical model. Now what we will do, formulating concepts. How do we identify the concepts? Now you can see very clearly from this picture, there are three concepts of conflicts and there are three concepts of satisfactions. In other words, there are three conflicts which are called concepts of types of conflicts are called concepts of I'm sorry, three types of conflicts and three types of satisfactions. Totally, there are six concepts. Now, this is the way you have to identify all the concepts that you want to study. Sometimes what happens, some research students might identify only first three concepts. They'll ignore the remaining three concepts. There's nothing wrong in it. It's up to them. They can judge, they can justify how much they want to identify, how many concepts they want to study. Some students will take only work conflict, one concept, but I told you in the previous class, one should take at least a minimum of two concepts. Now here you have six concepts. So I want to demonstrate maximum all the six concepts, but you don't have to worry about six concepts in your homework. So what you can do, you either try to take two concepts or three concepts, or it's up to you. But if anybody wants to take more challenge, I would welcome, I would encourage you. But it's not a force. You have to enjoy just doing it. That's it. So what I'll do now, this is the theoretical model chosen from the article which I have displayed yesterday. Greenhouse, Kopelman, and I think there are two more authors. So from their research, I've identified these six concepts. Now I'm going to demonstrate how I will translate or how would I convert, sorry, how would I convert each of them. I guess this is so clear to you. Yesterday we had seen more elaborately each of these. The first one in the problem formulation is called research idea. The second one is conversion conversion of research idea into research question. And then the third one is conversion of research question into research objective. And the last one is conversion of an objective into hypothesis. Either it could be research hypothesis or null hypothesis. Now, theoretically, that is the framework, and I'm demonstrating it here. Yesterday, also, I have shown you many examples of lot of questions, objectives, and hypotheses. But this is one broad example how I can translate that. Now, here you can see my research idea is conflicts and satisfaction. The two concepts I'm taking broadly. There can be a third concept also, like for example, conflicts, conflict resolution, and satisfaction. I can even take a research idea like that. But there are three concepts. But I'll ask you always to confine yourself to only two concepts. Now, how do you translate research idea into research question? You can see here. You can see the question is, does conflict influence satisfaction? This is a very broad question. But yesterday I had shown you additional questions also. But this is only minimum one question I'm showing. But you can even have many more questions here. For example, how does conflict vary among sorry, how does conflict vary among hospital managers according to their background? Or another question which I had shown you yesterday, how does satisfaction vary among hospital employees according to their backgrounds? So background is another variable. So you can have three questions here. Of course, today I'm showing you only one next question, but yesterday I had shown you three questions here. So you can have as many questions as you want, but at post-graduation level, at least 3 to 4 questions is what expected. For a PhD thesis, you may have 6 questions, 7 questions, or 10 questions also. But for a PG student, I would say at least 3 to 4 questions. And then, how do you translate these questions into objectives? You can see objective number one is to examine the relationship between conflict and satisfaction. So it is giving us a direction to our study. So now at the end of the study, you must have answered this question. You must have also fulfilled this objective. Now, objectives are like, guideposts or lamp posts that would guide you through the entire research work. Now, once you are through with the research objective, translating a research objective into research hypothesis or null hypothesis or simply hypothesis. So here I would say conflict and satisfaction are not related. So I am proposing a null hypothesis. So I think so far it should be fine. I can even have additional hypothesis or additional objectives to study the variations in conflict according to the employee's background, to study variations in satisfaction according to the employee's background. So three objectives. As many questions, so many objectives. As many objectives, so many questions. They must exactly match. If they are not matching, there is something wrong with a student's understanding. I hope this is very clear. So if this is very clear, I think I will discontinue this. And then once you start your homework, you will have more ideas, more doubts. So slowly, gradually, let me check something's problem with it. I think I'm sorry about it. So this is what this was not visible earlier. So thanks Murli for your feedback. So this is what I was, this screen I was trying to explain, but unfortunately I didn't notice that, my camera was on. I'm sorry about it. So this is the theory which I had chosen from the review of literature, which I had shown you yesterday of one particular study by Kopelman and others. Now they've identified 6 concepts, and all these 6 concepts are now subjected to problem formulation in the next slide. So here you can see research idea to research question to research objective, and research objective to hypothesis. And further, how research idea is translated into research question. And how research question is translated into research objective. And how research objective is translated into research hypothesis or null hypothesis. So we can have 3 questions at least for a PG student, or 4. Similarly, 3 objectives or 4 objectives, and then 3 to 4 null hypotheses. You would have definitely understood the purpose of null hypothesis in the previous semesters. The reason is, if you are suggesting a null hypothesis or proposing a null hypothesis, you are not biased. If you say that conflict and satisfaction are related, you are biased. You are already declaring that there is a correlation. Then why do you conduct the study? So instead, you start with null hypothesis, they are not correlated, and after testing the hypothesis, you would know exactly what is true or false. So that's why you always should be unbiased, and that's the reason we suggest null hypothesis always. So conflict and satisfaction are not related. Employees do not vary in their conflict according to their backgrounds. Employees do not vary in their satisfaction according to their backgrounds. Backgrounds would include age, gender, education, designation, department, and so on and so forth. I hope so far it should be clear. I think this should help you to do your, what I would say, the homework or the project more comfortably. So you can take time now. You still have Sunday. So you can do extensive work on Sunday and then get back on Monday. You can submit it through your representative, class representative. All students 2-page note on problem formulation with research idea, research questions, research objectives, and null hypothesis. So don't bother about how matured it would be. You can still try that. We would eventually learn how to move forward. So I guess so far so good. So if this is fine, we can move into the next topic, that is called conclusive topic. Not exactly conclusive topic, I would say. Research design is a very complex subject. Yesterday I was telling you, and then slowly we'll move into it because today in this environment, like COVID-19 environment, I would call it, since the last 40 plus days. Now, in this environment, people are across the world, particularly the researchers, are doing a lot of research on them. Huge research from China is stemming out. This morning, I was searching on internet how much of research is going on this COVID. So there were, hundreds of patients were subjected to these treatments. They were testing on the efficacy of the treatments. Some 1500 patients were given chloroquine, and then they're trying the efficacy of chloroquine. And then in United States, hundreds of patients were given remdesivir, and then they're testing the efficacy of that drug. So when finally we found that there is some bias in the selection of the sample in case of remdesivir. So morning I was reading all those papers on the internet. It's very interesting. I'm sure I will try to bring that fresh experience into our discussions now. So what I'll do, I'll discontinue this slide. We'll move into the next slide called research design. Now, in case if you have any questions, you can raise them in the chat box. So we can start with the next one called research design. This is an interesting topic. As I told you in the previous class, research design is the backbone or the skeletal frame of your entire research work. So what we will do now, slowly we'll move into this topic. I hope the screen is visible. Fine. So what we will do now, we will slowly move into the topic. Now let's slowly get into this, as research design is the backbone of your entire research work. Without research design, you will never have a complete understanding of what you are doing. And that's why this is a complete skeletal structure of your entire research work. Now you can see where are we in this. I would say this slide is like a map. It would tell us where are we. So far we had seen 4 steps. One unseen step called selection of the topic. Then assess relevant existing knowledge, formulate concepts and propositions, then statement of hypothesis, and then design of research. Now, very interestingly, I forgot to tell you, in concepts and prepositions, we didn't talk much about prepositions. So what I'll do, I'll go back to one slide and then we'll come back, because I think this is something very, very crucial. Prepositions we didn't highlight, or hypothesis also completely we didn't highlight. How many possible prepositions are there? How many possible hypotheses are there in that previous slide? So what I'll do, I'll get back once more to that slides. Just a minute. I'm just waiting for that screen. Yeah, that's the one. I think it's visible to you now. Now here you can see there are 6 concepts and those arrows we didn't talk about. Anybody can try what are those arrows? What do you mean by those arrows? Anybody can try. Now I'm able to see the live chat. I can also explore your answers. Would anybody try? What are those arrows mean? Each arrow is a preposition. Somewhere you can write down in your notes. Each arrow is a preposition. For example, let's start with the first arrow. I didn't put the number there, but on that arrows, each of those arrows we can put a number. Let's start with the first arrow, that is the arrow between work conflict and family conflict. There you can say P1, that is called preposition 1. While making notes, you can write down there. The first arrow is called P1, called preposition 1. Then the second arrow is work conflict and inter-role conflict, preposition 2. Then preposition 3, family conflict and inter-role conflict. So you have 3 prepositions. The fourth one is work conflict and work satisfaction. That is called P5. And the next one is family conflict and family satisfaction. That is, sorry, P5 I think. P4 is work conflict and work satisfaction. P5 is family conflict and family satisfaction. P6 is work satisfaction and life satisfaction. P7, family satisfaction and life satisfaction. What you can actually see here is in these concepts, you would know which concept comes first and which concept comes next. That's how theories are built. And why these concepts are existing in their own location or position? Because of cause and effect. For example, work conflict causes family conflict, and backwards, family conflict causes work conflict. But without work, nobody gets married, so naturally, no family. And that's the reason work conflict is always first, followed by family conflict. Now, when these two conflicts are existing, a new conflict is created called inter-role conflict. What does it mean? You have two roles to play in life, work roles and family roles. That's why you have a next conflict called inter-role conflict. Now, because of work conflict, you have poor work satisfaction, and then because of family conflicts, you have poor family satisfaction. And work satisfaction and family satisfaction results in life satisfaction. So, logically, all these concepts are arranged. We will call these concepts later on variables once the new topic is started on Monday. I will start using different jargons. There I will not use concepts, prepositions anymore. There I will only be using variables, constructs, operations, measurements. So I will change all the jargon from Monday. So I'll of course prepare you, but in the meantime you can also do some reading. Uh, what I've interestingly found on Google that if you type research methods for business management students, you'll get plenty of PDF books, commercial books. Somebody kept them PDF formats online. So you can download those kind of books and then peacefully read them in your leisure time, or you can copy those PDF files on your mobile phone, and then if you have a what is that called ebook prestigio app, Android app, this app will play the PDF files, so you can also listen to them. Every chapter you can listen to, somebody will be speaking on your for you, so you can simply close your eyes and listen. Such a wonderful times we are living in. You have wonderful technologies. Only thing is you need to explore. So now we have seen something like how many prepositions: work conflict and family satisfaction P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, P6, P7, P8, interval conflict and life cycle P8. So you can have 8 prepositions and 8 hypotheses. Somewhere you must be noting down. That's the possibility. 8 propositions and 8 hypotheses. Similarly, 8 objectives, backwards, 8 questions. Not only that, if we can connect between interval conflict and work satisfaction, this is 9th proposition. Interval conflict and family satisfaction, 10th proposition. Can anybody explore how many more are there? I can still try. Work satisfaction, family satisfaction, 11th proposition. If I draw another arrow here. So I can have 11 propositions, 11 hypotheses in my research. Yeah, it can be a PhD topic actually. If anybody wants to do in future, that's the possibility. So with 11 hypotheses, you can conduct a PhD work. That's the possibility. So now that's it. We will close these slides. We'll straight away get into research design. So that's our topic, research design. You can just wait 1 minute for the refreshing because it will take some time for the refreshing. Yeah. So you will see the screens only 1 minute after my voice. Okay, so what we'll do now, we'll straight get into the subject called research design. Now, this is what our guiding slide. Always in every class, I will show you this slide. So you will never forget these steps in your entire lifetime. Just meditate on them. 4 steps we had seen. We are moving into 5th step, and our syllabus is about unit 2. Okay, so let's start with design or research design. So what, just refresh once again. We had seen so far the definition of research. It's a systematic process of gathering, recording and analyzing data. That's what our definition was. It's a systematic and scientific way of gathering and recording and analyzing the data so that the knowledge that is gained is useful for decision making. But now here I'm more simplifying the definition. It's a systematic or systematized effort to gain new knowledge. But gaining new knowledge is not enough because as hospital managers, you have to use this knowledge for decision making. That's why in consciously I have picked up the definition which says the knowledge must be used for decision making. Otherwise, it is only mere academic research. So that's not what we want today. So let's see the overview. What is research design? So we'll try to spend some time on it and followed by what are the types of research design. So these are the only 2 topics, 2 themes that we will see for today. And then we'll not have a long session today. And then Saturday being, I think, a relaxing time, and then Sunday you will have a lot of other things to do. And then fine. So Monday, once we come back, from Monday onwards, we will get into more action-based topics. because a lot of videos will be there, and then a lot of demonstrations will be there. So you have to, if you finish your homework by Monday, I'm sure from Tuesday onwards you can demonstrate like how I am demonstrating. For example, if we are through with problem formulation, you can also be ready with on Tuesday for the next kind of a homework. I'm not insisting that you should do homework, that is not the right word, but you can say project. You can try some project from Tuesday onwards. For example, how to prepare a questionnaire for your topic, then how to put it online. I'll show you all the services demonstratively, and then how to put it online, and then how to send the link to respondents so that you can collect answers from them. Then after collecting the answers, what is that we should do? And then I will introduce you to the software, then how to use that software, how to generate tables, graphs, and how to apply statistics. All that we will see from next week onwards. So next week is going to be very live and active. So don't miss out, because next week is such a crucial week, at least in your case, I would say, because I'm demonstratively teaching this subject for the first time, more through tools, software tools. So therefore, the subject must come to life in action. So, and for that matter, you must also be actively participating in it. Whatever I'm doing on the screen from next week, you should be also able to do it afterwards. Of course, in real time, it's not possible because you're learning. After learning, you're doing. Excuse me, just a second. I have to switch on the power. Okay, so let's start with what is research design, and then we will see the types. I think you have to pay a lot of attention to the types also, because there the complications are, or the complexities are. Types are various, particularly if, in the context of the COVID-19. I'll try to give some examples like how scientists or researchers are doing research on this virus using some of these types which I'm going to show you, though it may not be more useful for you as a hospital manager because your topics are different. But tomorrow, who knows, some doctors in a hospital are doing their research and then they want your help. I know you are the great hospital manager that they want. They will admire you because you can understand things better, you can help doctors better with these designs. Because I was very popular like that in Apollo Hospital. All those resident doctors would come to me for all this kind of help. So you would easily be acceptable in the eyes of the senior management when you can contribute this kind of knowledge to the other experts or specialists in your workplace. So let's slowly move into the what is this research design, and then we'll explore types. What is research design? It's a master plan actually, a master plan which describes all the methods and procedures for collecting and analyzing the information that we need, and that's why we call it a master plan. So master plan can also be, I think I'll explain you a better way. It's a detailed plan. So particularly I'm highlighting those words. It's a master plan means it has complete information about what are you doing. So plan is all about future. So what are you going to do in the future is what you mention in a document, and that's what we call a master plan. For example, it is also called a detailed plan in the sense a master plan is a very big plan, but when I say it's a detailed plan, every minute aspect of your project can be elaborated on that. That's why you're outlining all the detailed aspects of how you're going to collect the data and how are you going to present the report finally. So that's why it's called detailed plan. Now it is also called a framework. So when you put a framework, basically like a photograph, put portrait in a framework. So that's what we call the frame. So whatever is possible, you put them in a frame. That's what we call framework. It's a plan for a study that guides the collection and analysis of the data. So exactly how are you going to do your project report? When you present it in a written form, it is called master plan or detailed plan or framework or simply research design. Now, before that, uh, it can also be, you can also note down somewhere, I didn't mention it here. It is also called the blueprint of research work. That's part of your notes you can make. It's a blueprint of your research work. So what do you mean by blueprint? Anybody? You would know what is called a blueprint. If anybody had a house constructed in the recent times, your father involved in it, you would have seen what is called a blueprint, which is really in a blue color, a big paper, a big sheet of paper in which you would see a design or a map in blue color, and that is submitted to the GHMC or HMDA or municipality or local panchayat office for permission. So they would go through the plan, and if it is acceptable, they will approve it for construction. Without that, you cannot construct a house or any building in this country. So that's what we call blueprint. It's so important. In blueprint, you would also know where exactly is your living room, where exactly is your dining room, where exactly is your kitchen, where exactly is your office room, where do you find the veranda, where do you find your washrooms, where do you find the puja room, and then where do you find your backyards, and then whatnot. So many detailed things are mentioned in a blueprint. Same analogy is applicable even to research design. So detailed, all the aspects of your work, research work, are presented in a master sheet or master plan or research design. I think with that preview, what I will do now, we will summarize the entire thing about research design in one slide now. It is called a steady design. So research design is also called a steady design. A study design, which is a specific plan or protocol for conducting the study. Now you'll understand it better when I say protocol. It's a specific plan or protocol for conducting the study, which allows the investigator or researcher to translate the conceptual hypothesis into operational one. So that's why I said it's a skeletal. Research design is a skeletal form framework because you will slowly fill the skeleton with the sinews, the veins, the arteries, the blood vessels, and then the muscle. And once that is done, you have the entire human body ready. So that's visualization. So research design is like a skeletal form or frame, and you start filling this skeletal frame one by one until the human body is visible. That's how God created us. So therefore, conceptual hypothesis into operational hypothesis. That means whatever you have assumed, you're trying to test them and see whether that assumption is right or wrong. So once again, it's a design or a specific plan or a protocol, but we are using this word protocol because in hospitals the research has to be having a protocol. You cannot conduct a study without this protocol. So the top academic body will approve your research design, and then you would start the research work. So that's how we define. It's a master plan, it's a detailed plan, it's a blueprint, it's a framework, it's a steady design or a protocol for research, protocol for conducting research, or by and large, it's a, I would say, a comprehensive plan of conducting research, more simplified. So if you are through with it, what we can do now, we will straight get into types of design. And here we are expected to use a lot of examples. So why? Because there are several types of designs, and of course, new designs are emerging. So in case if I wanted to introduce you something new which is happening across the world, particularly in healthcare settings, there is a type of a design which is called a single subject design. So just remember that I didn't mention because I didn't want to mention that, but it just came out. Single subject designs are very popular in the Western countries. What are these designs all about? Now, a single subject design is also called n is equal to 1. So as of now, I will only tell you that. Gradually, if anybody is interested, I'll explain you more. N is equal to 1. That means only on one individual you can conduct research. Only one individual. I remember once I raised this issue to a statistician, a professor of statistics. He said, how is it possible, sir? How can we conduct research on one individual? We should have a minimum sample of 30, How we can do it? Which means he was not aware of that design, though he was a professor for a long years. So what I'm trying to say, we are outdated every minute if we are not reading the latest books. So anybody for that matter, whether he's a professor or a manager, we are supposed to read continuously hundreds of pages. There is a standard research which says that if you can spend 45 minutes per day, you can read one book in a week. Or if you have speed reading, if you spend only 20 minutes a day, you can read 3 books in a week. That is a research study. So you can imagine the possibility in this lifetime. Before we die, we must have read thoroughly well. So I would advise you to watch a movie on this Sunday if you have time, a movie called Equalizer. The movie is a wonderful movie. I kept watching this movie whenever I am alone at home, nobody's there. On a big computer screen, a big television screen, I would watch this movie because every scene in this movie is worthwhile, worth watching. Every dialogue I still remember. I can recite those dialogues. They are so perfectly carved, what I would say, framed. And this movie is all about a gentleman retired from the army, and this gentleman is expert in all aspects of maneuvering in the military. And this gentleman would lose his wife, and then before dying, that woman would ask him to read 100 books before dying. There are 100 books that one should read before dying. That's what she would suggest him. So this gentleman gives up his job because now his wife is not there. So he would read all those books uh, all through this movie. So as he comes to the 99th book, there would be a change in his life. So this entire movie is all about that change. So he would stop reading that 100th book. So 99th book or 98th book he would stop. So after watching that movie, I understand that yes, there are literally hundreds and millions of books. Why we should be missing them? This generation is so devoid of it. They don't have passion for reading. Of course, they spend hours and hours watching, hours and hours listening, but not reading. And one more point I'll explain, and then we'll move into the types of designs. I'm sorry for this deviation, but it's worth doing it because in this lockdown period, you can read literally thousands of pages because what goes into your mind only will come out through your mouth. If nothing is going into your mind, what comes out of your mouth? In the interview, at least you cannot speak well. In a discussion, you cannot speak well. In with experts, you cannot converse well if you don't have enough words and thoughts. Imagine if you read a book written by someone who's 30 years experienced. He's putting all his 30 years of experience in a book, and in a week's time, you would learn 30 years of experience. So if you read 100 books in your lifetime, worth 30 years of experience, 100 into 30, those many years of knowledge you are getting in short time. Tell me who would ignore such kind of an advice in this world? I think that would be foolish. After realizing this, of course, I'm fond of reading all through my childhood. So nobody told me to read well, but right from my childhood, I got this passion. Uh, maybe, thank God, I still don't have spectacles today. Maybe because I read too much, I don't have spectacles. People get spectacles when they don't read, I guess. It's a joke anyway, but don't take it seriously. But what I'm trying to say finally is reading is a passion. One should do it because you're acquiring others' experiences. A wise guy would always learn from others' mistakes. An intelligent guy will always learn from his own mistakes. So I don't want to commit a mistake. I want to be wise. I want to learn from others' mistakes, and that's why I read well. So I think with that slight deviation of lesson for life, let's slowly get into the types of design. I'm simplifying them, though they are very complicated. So these are the 6 standard designs that you would find across the world. These are the types of designs. The first one is called exploratory design. The second one is called descriptive design, or sometimes it's also called diagnostic design. In some textbooks, it is also called analytic design. So what you can do is in your notes, you write down descriptive slash diagnostic slash analytic design. Then the third one is called correlational design. The fourth one is called experimental design. The fifth one is called review design. And the last one is called meta-analytic design. Now today, uh, if governments have to make decision on adopting the antivirus for COVID-19, which design they should depend on is a very important question to all of you. Should they depend on a research which was exploratory? Should they depend on a scientist who declared his results based on descriptive design or diagnostic design? Should government depend on a research study conducted by a medicine, an expert in the field, researcher in the field, using correlational design or experimental design or review design or meta-analytic design? So what I would advise you is that uh, all designs are important on their own, but they are not sufficient. Now today, governments are depending on the output of research using meta-analytic design. Now COVID-19 virus, all research relating to it, if they are based on meta-analytic design, governments will accept that studies or experimental design. Having conducted the experiments, there are various types of experiments I would show you. If the research output published by Lancet, BMJ, PubMed, these are the popular journals in medical area, Nature or Science, these are the journals very popular across the world. If these journals publish articles, research articles on COVID-19 based on meta-analytic design, that journal becomes popular across the world. It makes millions of dollars. The authors are paid thousands of dollars for publishing such articles. So they become millionaires overnight for such kind of research or for such kind of publication. So I will explain you each of them, but I'm only giving you how powerful these designs are. For example, you have seen yesterday's news or day before yesterday's news. Italy had declared that they were successful in the vaccine for COVID-19. Do you think it is reliable information? I'm not jumping at because I also heard that news. Israelites also found the vaccine, that's what they say. Not exactly the vaccine, they say antibodies. They found the antibodies to fight this virus. But I'm still not happy. I'm not excited because very recently we have also seen that Indians are also very close to making the vaccine. What happens in the next few months? Nobody bothers about this virus. They just live normally. People keep going, coming. If every life, if everywhere life becomes as usual as it was before this lockdown, do you think these companies will still conduct research? Do you think the researchers will spend huge money on finding vaccines? No, they will immediately stop it. That's what they did it when SARS outbreak started. That's what they did when MERS came out. They thought of building vaccines, they spent a lot of money, but everything became normal. These companies withdrew their research. I am guessing something like that. Or maybe there is another danger that in a hurry, countries are competing, pharma companies are also competing for preparing vaccines. These vaccines may be tried out on African population or innocent illiterate population for trials. What if something goes wrong? It's going to be a disaster also, I'm sure. So that's why these designs are so important. I am not going to accept this vaccine unless until that vaccine had gone through one of these designs or most reliable designs. I am not going to accept any antivirus for COVID-19 unless they would have gone through any of these designs or one of the popular designs conveniently. I would tell you where exactly we use all of them. So I think with that view or some introduction to uh, what I would say the uh, investigation or finding a cure for this virus, let us start with each of these designs. Now what we will do, we'll also find examples for each of them. If so far it is so good, if our video is clean and then audio is also clear, I think we will slowly get into the designs, types of designs. So you can some of you can put some comments also if you have any problems. Okay, so we will start with the first design called exploratory research design. So what is that? So what is this design and when to use this design? So for every design, we'll try to have these questions. What is this design and when to use this design? Similarly, if I'm talking about descriptive design, correlational, experimental, review, and meta-analytic, we'll talk about what are they and then when do we use them. So that's approach I'm taking. Hope it will be easy for you to understand. Okay, now starting with what is called exploratory research design. Now this design helps us in problem formulation. You know what is problem formulation? Those four steps: idea, questions, objectives, and hypothesis. Four together is called formulating a problem. Four steps together. So when exploratory design is used when you are not having a hypothesis. I would start like that and then slowly we'll move into the slide. For exploratory design, you don't have initial hypothesis. So the purpose is to develop hypothesis. Whereas in other designs, you have hypothesis and then start testing it. Whereas here, you don't have hypothesis in this design. Now you may say, how is it possible then? It's possible because we don't have much knowledge about, let us say, this virus called corona. By the way, the word corona comes from crown. So, coronation. Coronation means enthroning a king. So, therefore, once a king is enthroned, he is given a crown. So, this virus looks like a crown. That's why they called it corona. In my opinion, it is a rich man's disease as of now. All rich people only suffered from this disease. And this virus infected all rich people who have traveled extensively. A lot of businessmen, you could have heard, a lot of businessmen suffered from this virus. Some have become victims. Very popular figures, like particularly ministers. Spanish prince died of this. Spanish princess died of this. Then British Prime Minister was infected. Likewise, entire Saudi king family was infected. So this virus infected only the rich people, mostly the rich people. And then many of them died. And it didn't have much effect on poor people, particularly in India. So there's something very curious. I have alternative understanding is why this virus is infecting only the rich people, not the poor people. Can you have a hypothesis like that? If you are conducting a study on that hypothesis or assumption like that, why this virus has killed rich people more than the poor people, I think it is called exploratory research. I've heard somewhere in the news, or I think I read it. I read it on the internet news that the astronauts have collected the samples of this virus and they're conducting some research on it on in the space labs. You may be curious to know why are they doing it in the space labs? They can do it in labs on the Earth. Why are they doing there? What is their objective? So if scientists conduct research on this virus in a space lab, that means they are controlling all the gravitational conditions. That means they're controlling the atmospheric conditions and doing some experiments on it in a totally different context. That's called exploratory design, in my opinion. I remember our health minister made a statement once on the television. I don't want to take the name, but this gentleman made a statement saying that the mortality rates are very, very thin in our context in India, whereas it's so unimaginable in Italy, Spain, Germany, United States. In spite of having advanced healthcare facilities, advanced healthcare research, the mortalities are very high. Whereas, in spite of not having advanced facilities in our country, the mortality rates are very, very meager actually for the given population. Then the health minister made a statement, very interesting. What he said is, even he's curious to know why the death rate is so thin in our country. I would only say thank God, because humanly it is impossible. Doctors and nurses working day and night, but what are they working? Nobody knows, because when there is no cure, when there is no treatment, what are they doing day and night? Is a very big question to me even today. Fine, the whole world thanks them for their services, but when there is no medicine for it, what are they doing all through the 24 hours a day? Is a very big question. So if anybody wants to conduct a research on what are these doctors and nurses doing when there is no treatment for this virus, that kind of research is called exploratory research design. So this gentleman says, I really don't know our Indian bodies are, this is what he made a statement in Telugu. These Indian bodies are rock bodies, that's what he made in Telugu. This virus is not playing havoc with Indian bodies. It doesn't have much impact on Indian lungs, that's what he made a statement. Maybe because of having taken BCG during childhood. These kind of observations he made. So don't you think? our researchers should be conducting research on these issues. If Indian researchers would conduct research on these issues, I would call those studies exploratory based. Because now let us see, they are establishing priorities for the future research. And then that's what all this time I'm talking about these issues. Nobody is doing research on those issues actually. When CCMB director made a statement that these virus strains are peculiar in each country, you cannot find any drug or any vaccine unless and until you bring all the strains together and make a comparative study. I think that is an exploratory design. I don't think it's possible in given conditions today. Which country would cooperate? You must collect blood samples of all these countries, 194 countries, blood samples from 194 countries, and you have to pick up these blood samples randomly from the patients and then bring all these 190 plus samples and conduct a study on the nature of this virus. It's such an impossible task, but if anybody tries to do that, I would say that's called exploratory research design. So in this design, we are gathering information about practical problems for carrying out research on hypothetical statements to be developed actually. We are not developing anything. We have doubts, that's it. But when you're testing this doubt, this results in a hypothesis rather than testing a hypothesis. The purpose of this design is to increase the familiarity with the problem. So you can get more and more knowledge about the problems that are existing today because of this study. So this study will help us in that direction. For example, one news report says that during this lockdown, since all children are in home, the food consumption has increased because they are at home. Whereas another news report I read that the consumption is so minimal because people are not buying, people are not placing food orders on Swiggy, Zomato, and so on because almost all hotels are closed. So both are contradicting. One statement, one report says food consumption is on the rise. Another report says uh, people are not buying food. I have also inquired from the local grocery stores because every second day I would go out for purchasing some groceries, vegetables, and milk, and so on. I was inquiring, I was talking to them just to know curiously. The grocery stores fellow says that the groceries are not supplied, but there is no transportation. So where is the consumption on the rise? So I think if you are conducting a study on these questions, I think they are called exploratory designs because more concluding now. I'm concluding this design. When you don't have knowledge about that problem that is under study as of now, when you don't have any books, when you don't have any publications, when you don't have any internet pages on the problem that you want to study, you are actually using exploratory design. So that's how underlying. So 2 points I will highlight once again. When you don't have concepts or when you are trying to identify and clarify the concept, that is the last point here on the screen. When you are identifying concepts for the first time, clarifying them for the first time because you don't have previous research, and then you don't have hypothesis, you can't have hypothesis because you don't have any concepts. You cannot assume anything. And you don't have much knowledge about the problem under study and you're slowly increasing familiarity with this problem. In that context, it is the design that would help us. Now, when to use? Concluding, when little knowledge is available about the problem under study. For example, I'll tell you very soon, all of us will be developing a problem called hypochondria. Have you ever heard of this word? You're all science students. I'm sure some of you would have definitely heard this word. Hypochondria. So I'll not highlight that more. Uh, you're you're afraid of being sick. When you think that something is happening to me, could it be because of COVID? When I have sneezing, could it be because of COVID? People run away around you. They think that you have this. So they have hypochondria or you have hypochondria. When you cough, you doubt you have this disease. When you have pain in your lungs or chest, you doubt that you have this disease. So when you're running temperature, you think you have this disease. So this state of mind or this state of feeling is called hypochondria. So that's going to be on the rise across the world. Nobody's talking about that. So if any one of you would think of doing a research like that, it's going to be called exploratory research design. I think we have sufficient examples. So when little knowledge is available, as of now, nobody has the knowledge on hypochondria as a result of COVID. So even healthy people will be scared of. That's called hypochondria. If any body pain happens, they doubt. If headache, they doubt. If cough, they doubt. If they are sneezing, they doubt. Running nose, they doubt. So for everything, they will suffer from these doubts. That's what we call the hypochondriac state. Anxiety. People develop a lot of anxieties about future, how long this lockdown. So if anybody is conducting a study on anxiety, this would be called exploratory designs, more conclusive. When little knowledge is available or when literature survey is not available, that means no publications are so far. When less experience, is everybody is fresh to this virus today, everybody is experiencing this virus for the first time in their life. So you don't have much knowledge. So any research on this virus is called exploratory today. And in this, we can take select cases. So all patients or only select cases. You can analyze the select cases and start building some understanding. For example, from Gandhi Hospital, I came to know about this because I have some people there, some doctors and some nurses. They share that uh, this virus didn't have any effect on children. No peripheral symptoms. And in the same hospital, a 40-year-old man have this infection and he didn't develop even a single symptom. He is very healthy, but that virus is there for more than I think 28 days. He's fed up. It's not turning negative, but he is not developing any symptoms also. So don't you think somebody should conduct study uh, on him, particularly on his blood samples? If such study is done, it is called exploratory research design. Analysis of select cases. Pick up all these children and conduct a study. That's called exploratory design. Now, that's what I have only broadly taken COVID as an example for this, but there are many more I told you. For example, if you want to conduct a study on, do you remember last year, I suppose, somewhere in coastal Andhra, there is a village in which almost entire every family member had kidney disease. Nobody would know why everybody in that village has a kidney disease virtually. Virtually everyone. They found there's nothing wrong with the water supply. They found there's nothing wrong with the food supply. They found there's nothing wrong with the environment, the air, but still they have this disease. So nobody knows because historically you don't have any literature. There is no book which talks about this problem. So therefore they called some experts from Harvard Medical College and they came down to this region to conduct research studies on them. In fact, they were only using exploratory research design. And there are many more cases, many more examples I can quote. For example, In Africa, there is a peculiar tribe called Maasai tribe. I don't know whether you heard of them. Masai, I think. You can type it out later on in Google. Maasai tribe. Interestingly, in this tribe, everybody would have six-pack bodies, but they don't do exercises in a gym like modern people do it in cities. So, without doing exercises, how would anybody develop six-pack? I'm sure you will also be curious. Most of the boys would be curious while listening to this session. So, I want you to find out how did they do it. I know the answer. I'm not going to tell you openly, but I want you to dig out. Somebody found the answer. Without doing exercises, how do they keep their muscle toned? Without physical exercises, without gym activity, how would you have such kind of a body sculpted? So one professor, medical professor called Timothy Noakes, he found the answer. So in fact, that study is exploratory research design. How many of you know a wonder dietary supplement called spirulina? I'm using this dietary supplement for almost now 25 years. Every day, 1 to 2 capsules I will take. Dabur is making in our country. Sonova is making. Now many more companies are making it in our country. Spirulina is a plant which is highly nutritious. And how did they find this plant? It's a wonderful research actually. It's an exploratory design. So you can try out on Google. How did they find spirulina plant extracts? Again, the same study. They found in a tribe, all the tribal people were very healthy, no health problems. Nobody had hair fall, nobody had eyesight problems, nobody have tooth decay. Everybody was healthy there. So the epidemiologists went there and they conducted the study. And they found that this entire tribe was drinking water from one common source, and that water pool has full of spirulina plants. And that's how they've invented the effects of spirulina. I will not talk much about it, but it's an example of how exploratory research designs are utilized. There are plenty of examples actually. Madame Curie was also doing exploratory design. Einstein was doing exploratory design. Newton did exploratory design. Many more people, many more people. Edison was doing exploratory design because he didn't have any knowledge about what is it called? Incandescent lamp, but he found it. So that's the power of this design. So very quickly now I'll move out of this. So these are all the examples. That example I don't think is more appropriate for us because uh, today the sales, the wine shops are making a lot of money. Have you ever heard of this word Corona beer? Ever since this virus outbroke, people stopped consuming this beer because the name of that brand is called Corona beer. So this is a very peculiar. This is the accidental name of the brand called Corona beer, and its sales dropped very drastically because people misunderstood that if you drink this beer, you would get coronavirus. Now, if you are working, of course, you're a hospital management student, but imagine if you're a marketing manager for this company, what would you do? Any step that you do is called exploratory design. That's it. So we will move quickly now into the next one. Employees pretending that they are working when boss is around. So when you want to explore this issue, it will be an exploratory design. I will not highlight more. So we will now go into next design. I'm still keeping time in my mind. So we will not go until 2 o'clock. So depending on the duration, we can continue this topic because I don't want you to stuff in too much. It's a heavy dose. So slowly I'm moving in because these designs have great potential for your careers tomorrow. You can emerge as consultants, you can emerge as experts if you are so confident in using these designs. So let's move on to the next one called descriptive design. Yeah, 95% of research today follows this design. The purpose is if you want to simply describe the characteristics of the samples, this is the suitable design. We'll give examples anyway. If you want to simply describe in the sense, for let us say, what is the average shoe size of uh, people in the city, in our city? So, if you, that's what the shoe size is a characteristic of the Hyderabad sample, of the city sample. So, if you want to describe the characteristic of the sample in the city, you would simply use a descriptive design. Now, second point, what if you want to know what is the shoe size of average size shoe size of women in the city, and then men in the city, and then children in the city? If you want to make such specific understandings about the shoe size, you are actually conducting a descriptive design. You are determining the frequency with which certain characteristics occur. So for example, we are taking two variables here, two concepts here. One is gender, other one is shoe size. So when you want to know the shoe size of the genders, it's a descriptive design. So that's the uniqueness of this design, and it's a very commonly used design, very popularly used this design. It will always have an initial hypothesis. That's how you should remember it. It will always start with a hypothesis, without which you are not moving forward. For example, you can have men and women do not differ in their shoe size. Boys and girls do not differ in their shoe size. So you can have initial hypothesis like that. There are of course some subtypes here. One is called case study, other one is called naturalistic. These are the subtypes of descriptive design. Naturalist observation, and then the survey. So what do we mean by these two? I'm sure you are very familiar with case study because we have done it in the previous semesters. If you pick up one particular case of individual or group or an organization and conduct a study, it's called case study. You're describing only one organization, you're describing only one group of people, you're describing only one individual, or you're describing one product, you're describing one hospital, you're describing one disease, you're describing one type of patients. So when you do this kind, it's called a case study design. And the second one is called naturalist observation. This design is frequently used by psychologists or hypnotists. So what do they do? Psychologists, if you go to a psychologist next time, he would very carefully observe you. In a natural setting, how are you behaving? So observing An individual's behavior in a natural setting is called naturalistic observation. And it's a very interesting study, interesting method design, because uh, when when you are not being watched, you actually behave, genuinely behave. When you are being watched, you will pretend your behavior. So that's why in naturalistic observation, we will get genuine data about how people behave, how people practice, how people live. That's the beauty of this design. So uh, this design will help us to get more accurate, more genuine data about how people behave in their natural settings. And the third one is called survey design, which is also part of descriptive design. I'm sure you would understand what is called a survey. We simply collect information from people on the problem. You might collect their opinions, attitudes, responses, statements, and then you compile them. So that's the another type of descriptive design. Nevertheless, what is actually the purpose of these designs? These designs would simply help us in describing the phenomena or describing the characteristics of the samples. Samples could include humans or products or services in a hospital. Now, when do we use it? Simply to describe when you want to describe the characteristics of the groups or the products or users of the products, which means patients or customers or consumers. And when you want to estimate the percentage of people in each specified population who behave in a certain way, as I told you in case of, let us say, take example once again of shoe size. What is the shoe size of men and women? So I'm estimating that proportion. What percentage of people having infection in a family with evidence of this infection? So in a family, who is the infected one first? And then what about the others? So when you want to estimate, heads of the household were infected, or mothers were infected more, or in some cases I found that son is infected but not daughter is. In some other cases I have seen daughter is infected but not son. So when you want to estimate, likewise, you are conducting this design. And not only that, if you want to make specific predictions about these characteristics, as I told you, the shoe size predictions or predictions about number of people likely to be infected in a family. A classic example is a young lady, a Chinese lady who went to South Korea. This is a very, very popular case on internet. You simply type a young Chinese lady infecting uh, at a time something like 1200 people or something like that. She went to a church in which there were something like 3000 people attending the worship. She infected quite a lot of them. And from there, after the church, she went to a funeral service, and she had infected many people there around in the funeral service. And after that, she went to a hotel and had buffet lunch. And in that hotel, she had infected so many people. So this is a very interesting case on the internet. So now, if you want to predict like this, how many people can be infected by one infected person? This is a descriptive design. Then when you want to determine how a particular variable is associated with other variables, like in case of the shoe size and the gender, both how are they associated? If you want to determine how they are associated, you will conduct a descriptive design. So now we are moving into the next design called correlational design. So as I told you, we will not move beyond the next 15 minutes, because by 1:45 I will stop this class. It's because it will be definitely heavy. Once I move into the next level designs, it will just blow off your mind. So what I will do, whatever we can finish by 1:45 we will finish off, and then I'll also trade off where exactly it is going to be heavy for you. Accordingly I'll stop, and then we'll come back on Monday to see the remaining designs. That's it. If once we finish off with the designs, it's all practical. So we will do a lot of exercises, and then you'll also get into that exercise mode, and then you keep generating a lot of information. We will be corresponding more through emails with all your homeworks. Instead of using the word homework, I'll say assignments. So let's move. What is called correlational design. Now, when you want to study the relationships between cause and effect, we will do this design. When you want to predict these relationships, you would use correlational design. There are many subtypes also. Once again, when you want to study the relationship between cause and effect, this design is very useful. Next, when you want to predict these relationships, you would still be using correlational design. For example, what is the relationship between, I have seen one study online, what is the relationship between chloroquine and the proliferation of coronavirus? Very interesting study. I am not a medical student. I've just studied until intermediate only the science, but I am able to understand all those medical terms, all those things much better because I have studied research subject. Not only medical science, I can understand engineering subjects better because of research subject. I am able to understand genetics actually. One PhD scholar came to me with her subtopic on genetics. It's totally a different subject. I don't think it's easy to understand. But I could understand that because of research subject. Sometimes students of physical education came to me. It's a totally different subject altogether, sports. But I could understand their subjects so easily because of research subjects. Similarly, a lot of nursing students come to me, MSc nursing students, and nursing PhD students come to me. Their topics are very complicated topics, but I can understand their topics so easily because of the subject called research. So this is such a potential subject. If you pick up strength in this subject, nothing can stop you in this world. You can understand even spiritual world much better than anybody else with this subject. Anyway, I will not deviate further because of 15 more minutes time that we have. So we will highlight that. Now, chloroquine and zinc does wonders in case of COVID. I don't know whether you heard of this, but I read lot of research, and I also listened to a lot of lectures on that. The cell, the virus, when the virus infects human cells, the human cell copying will be suppressed by the chloroquine, and zinc helps what you call chloroquine in entering into the living cell. Otherwise, living cell will not open the door to chloroquine, but it will open the door to the virus. That's a peculiarity. I'm going so microscopically in the world, physical world, which is not physical actually, or physical world which is not visible to your naked eye. So peculiar, right? In one physical world, you still have another physical world which is not visible to your naked eye. And that's what your internal bloodstream. It's another world altogether. So when you want to establish or study relationships between cause and effect, you follow this design. And when you want to predict to what extent this relationship continues, prediction means the method of concomitant variation. Remember that. Prediction is based on the method of concomitant variation of John Stuart Mill. Change in C proportionately changes another unit in Z or Z. So prediction is based on that. Okay, subtypes. The very interesting one. Subtypes. One is called case control. What do you mean by case control study? Here you will have two groups of patients, let us say. One group is infected, another group is good ones, not infected. This is what we call case control. So case means someone who is infected, control means someone who is not infected, and that's why they are called case control study design. Now here, how when you have these two groups, you will try to compare how these two groups have frequent exposure to certain risk factors that are present in each group. Point number one, how these two groups are exposed to the risk factors. How frequently these two groups are exposed to the risk factors. That is point number one. And then point number two, you can determine the relationship between risk factors and the disease. For example, you take children and adults. Adults are infected, children are not infected. Why? When you make a comparative study, you are basically using a case control study. These are all very popular studies actually, popular designs in fact. Similarly, observational study is simply epidemiological. One can go to that coastal belt and study the kidney disease simply through observations, not to emphasize more. So identify all the symptoms, then establish the relationship between the symptoms and the root cause. I think so. What I will do, I will stop here because experimental designs are highly complicated designs. They need totally different mindset and preparation also. So what I'll do, I'll simply display the list of the designs, but in the next, that is on Monday, we will see elaborately each of these designs. So start with number one. So I will skip this slide. We'll come back to that again, but we'll classify the designs. Laboratory design, then field design or laboratory experiments and field experiments. Until now, I was only talking about laboratory experiments because that's what the scientists do. But hospital managers are concerned about field designs more. So we'll talk about this design in the next class. And then I'll skip this just to show you the types of designs. That's it. So these are the types of experimental designs. First one is called, you can note down these designs in your notes, do some work, read them on the internet if you have some time today. Then Monday, when I'm explaining you, it becomes much easier for you to understand. The first one is called one group pre-test, post-test design. And these experimental designs are very popularly used in medical research, drug trials, cosmetic trials, detergent trials, now 5G technology. So we always have two different views about it. 5G is highly radiating, some people say that. And some people say no. 4G is also radiating. So how does it differ? How does it matter? So when you want to test, for example, a hospital wants to introduce a new service. So before introducing a new service, how the things are, how the outcome, how the patients are. After introducing a service, how the patient's views are, patient experiences are, if you want. No, this is the design. So we will talk about that more elaborately in the next class. Let's move on to the second one called pre-test, post-test control group. Pre-post control group. So that's the way you can even write pre-post with control group. That's the second design, pre-post control group design. So what does it mean? Here you have two groups, whereas in the first one you have only one group. Pre-post control group design. So two groups are there. And then the third design is called Solomon's four group design. So we are you're splitting the respondents or subjects or patients into four groups. Let's say each group will have about 10 patients. So you have 40 patients divided into four groups. Why should we do that? So we will see that on Monday anyway. What is the purpose of the design? The next one is called multiple experimental group with control. So you have more experimental groups and one group is called control. In case of experimental group, we'll give them the treatment, whereas in case of control group, we don't give the treatment. So control group suffers, but if there is a change in experimental group, then we can say the antivirus is working. So to demonstrate the effectiveness or efficacy of the drug, we can use this design. And the next one is called factorial design. This is a much more complicated design. So here in factorial design, we'll see the combinations. You will have only two groups, let us say experimental and control. But what happens in experimental groups, you will have, let us say, the fourth one in slightly different form is called factorial design. So factorial design also would have multiple groups for experiment, but there will be one control group. The only difference is in factorial design, we will give different types of medicines for different groups or combination of medicines, let us say. Let's say, for example, one experimental group having about 10 patients, to them we will give chloroquine plus remdesivir, whereas another group is given only chloroquine, and the third group is given chloroquine, remdesivir plus multivitamins or minerals. So then I would know which group is recovering faster. That's how I will freeze on the protocol. I hope so far I think is so good. I'm sure you're slowly digesting the subject. If you have any doubts, you can still raise them. Otherwise, I'll stop here and then we'll get back to this subject on Monday. So in the meantime, once again, we'll go back to the slides, refreshing. Yeah. So we had seen what is a research design. It's a blueprint of entire research activity. And then we have seen at least some types of designs called exploratory research design. The second one is descriptive and diagnostic design. I didn't explain about diagnostic design, but Monday I will. So I'm noting down somewhere in my notes, somewhere in my hand. I'm searching for my pen around. Okay. So I'm noting down in my notepad that diagnostic design is missing or analytic design is missing because I told you in the beginning descriptive, diagnostic, and analytic. So I'll explain you this combination of designs because I didn't elaborate more on that. Then we had seen what is called correlational design, and then very briefly we had seen what is called experimental design. And of course, review design is so simple. It is simply go through other people's research studies and then document it and submit your project report. That is called review design. The easiest appears, it appears as if the easiest form because you don't collect data, you don't go to the field, you simply browse internet, download all the research articles, read each article and write your own. That's called review design. And then today governments are depending on this design called meta-analytic design. Assuming that let us say some 100 research studies are there in in last 1 month. What are these 100 research studies uh, talking about this virus? If any professor or a group of professors have conducted a study on these 100 studies again, it's a study of studies. Already 100 studies are published. If I am conducting a study on those 100 studies, that's called meta-analytic design. So this design is the most robust design of all because you are generalizing or generating conclusions from 100 studies, let us say. If 100 studies give you some common thread emerging. That is the truth. Let us say 100 studies in which you say that 95 studies found that chloroquine is more effective than any other retroviral drug that they are using for treating COVID-19. So 95% of the studies found that chloroquine is effective. Don't you think that is the truth we should accept? Government should accept. That's what Donald Trump accepted it first. But today the gentleman is shifting his mood. He wants to promote Remdesivir or some other drug. But who did experimental design on this drug? So we have to know all this information, and thanks to this one way positively, this virus has given lot of information, exposure to understanding the dynamics of it using a subject like this. So I guess we are through with it. We are exactly now 1:45. I'll stop here and then we'll discontinue the topic. So we'll come back on Monday. So until then, have a nice weekend. Eat well, sleep well, study well. So I wish you all the best once again.